This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, officials hopeful in DNA results to ID those buried Hurricane Dorian victims. Plus, church is in as drive-up services take place. And we introduce you to 2 Long Island doctors on the front line of the COVID-19 fight.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight, officials are awaiting the results of DNA identification for those Hurricane Dorian victims who were buried in Abaco on Friday. The Disaster Reconstruction Authority held a virtual press conference earlier this afternoon with all stakeholders involved in the ecumenical service and mass burial of the 55 unidentified victims. Analysis of the initial DNA samples have proved very difficult and challenging. However, Superintendent Rochelle Delaveau is optimistic they will get some positive results very soon.
We chose that facility simply because they are well able to maximize difficult samples and to generate full profiles from difficult samples. So we have every confidence that we will be able to get full DNA profiles from the remains that have been collected and submitted to us. Additionally, the technology is progressing quite rapidly, and there are new technologies coming on stream every day. So even though the samples may have given us a little difficulty initially, we are quite certain that we will be able to get full profiles.
According to Assistant Commissioner of Police Solomon Cash, to date 63 bodies have been recovered on Abaco and 13 on Grand Bahama. Only 33 people have been reported missing. But police are tonight appealing for those who may have missing family members from Hurricane Dorian to come in and submit samples for DNA comparison.
We still need relatives or persons who have relatives that went missing during the hurricane to come in, make a missing persons report, and submit samples for DNA comparison. It is very true that even though we may have a profile from the remains themselves, if we don't have a family member's sample to compare that to, then we cannot really identify the individual as belonging to a particular family or being a particular person.
Now, police have received 21 samples out of the 33 individuals that have been reported missing. At the cemetery, there are no names, just numbers on each grave and casket that will be used to identify the remains of each victim once DNA results return from a lab in the U.S.
The bodies are identified currently in such a way that when DNA evidence is concluded, proper identification could be done at that point. But right now, the pathologists and the police can speak to what bodies are where. And if X goes in, gives DNA evidence, that DNA evidence is conclusive and successful, and we are able to identify that with one of the victims, then it is only at that point that that relative will know that, for example, AB0021 is in fact their family member.
Meantime, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the Bahamas now stands at 100. This after the Ministry of Health confirmed 3 additional cases yesterday. An 8-year-old boy is among the new cases, which also include a 25-year-old woman and a 27-year-old man. All 3 cases are here in New Providence and at home in isolation. The ministry did not indicate whether the cases are related. To date, there are 44 active cases, 46 people have recovered, and there have been 11 COVID-related deaths. Well, churches across the Bahamas took full advantage of the relaxed measures regarding worship gatherings. Our Jillian Gray visited some of those churches that held drive-up services and filed this report.
It was a pull-up and praise kind of Sunday as churches all across New Providence held their first drive-through service. It was a toe-tapping, hand-clapping gathering at Believers Embassy International on Carmichael Road. While maintaining the outlined social distancing measures, congregants gathered in great numbers, many of them braving the elements to worship God.
Government is doing what it can to keep us protected and keep us safe, but everybody misses normal. And for us on a Sunday morning, this is normal. So this is just a taste of what's to come as the phases move. So we're excited about being here today. We're excited to be starting to open up too.
I was a bit hesitant, to be honest, but after being here and, actually experiencing the worship experience, I had no choice to come out my car. Sorry, PM. But I was ecstatic once we got here, and I'm enjoying it.
God give the weather, we here to praise God. In the weather, out the weather, we here to praise God. It isn't a storm, so we here to praise Him.
Dressed in their Sunday best, families mixed with young and old wore masks, made sure only 4 people were in their cars in accordance with the new guidelines regarding worship settings. Pastor Stephen Monroe said they had been preparing for a return to church for some time now. He added they have already set up hand sanitizing stations and a temperature gun for when regular services are allowed to resume. Pastor Monroe said he became tearful as worship got underway, while others said the service is different. Everyone is adjusting to the new normal.
There's something about coming together. When the saints come together, there's an energy. God's faith and coming together, it's just different. I can feel, matter of fact, I had a moment just now in the car where tears just began to flow out of my eyes because I feel the presence of God in this parking lot. And I believe that we're getting ready to birth forth the greatest revival in this nation and by extension, the world at large.
It feels different, but I guess we're adjusting to what's going to become the new norm. But we're definitely enjoying it. It's something that I can see happening moving forward. If we're not allowed to come back together within the sanctuary, at least this is still another medium that persons can use to still be able to fellowship and see one another outside of Facebook Live.
In Coral Harbor, Family Life Kingdom Center also gathered for service. Congregants said it was heartwarming to see so many holding on to hope, faith, and belief in God, even through these difficult times. As members haven't gathered in nearly 9 weeks, Pastor Ryan Bethel said the service had to happen, and they were not going to let a little rain stop them.
It's not really impacting. We came prepared with a tarpaulin to put over the speaker to ensure that, it doesn't get wet. And, with speaker, that's my profession, sound, it doesn't affect the sound at all.
And we've been doing our Bible study on Zoom, so we were able to still continue the worship. But no, I didn't. I missed the building, but not church, because we were able to still worship God.
Both Pastor Bethel and Monroe agree that it was time for churches to reopen, and the announcement on Friday was past due.
I was excited that the church was allowed to resume. However, I thought it was a little short notice for other churches. But I'm the type of person that I like to think ahead.
We're just grateful for the Prime Minister for giving us this opportunity to get together as our church. And we haven't seen our members in some 9 weeks. So at least we'll get to see them physically from behind a car glass, but that's better than nothing.
Pastors say they will continue to use every legal means possible to provide support for their congregants and to give glory to God. Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
Another group of stranded Bahamians and residents finally arrived home last evening. More than 100 passengers made up the second group of repatriated residents. 79 passengers arrived here in the capital from Fort Lauderdale and were transported to the government-monitored quarantine facility. 60 passengers were transported to Freeport. Well, 2 cousins, both natives of Long Island, are tonight sharing their story of coming from humble beginnings on a family island to now being on the front line in the fight against COVID-19. They spoke with Kyle Joaquin.
You approach them with your heart. You give every patient your heart.
Dr. Roseanne Knowles McPhee is a senior house officer and a first-year resident in family medicine at Princess Margaret Hospital. Her cousin, Dr. Justine Knowles, is also a senior house officer and a first-year internal medicine resident at PMH. The pair came from humble beginnings growing up in the tiny settlement of Mangrove Bush, Long Island. Roseanne from a family of 6, and Justine, the middle of 3 children.
We didn't really see anybody whom we can kind of emulate or look up to in that sense. And so achieving a dream such as this, it's really amazing. It's been a tough road though, I'm not gonna lie. The sacrifices made personally, by family, doing everything you can trying to expose yourself in order to get those opportunities.
And you come from a good background. For me, my story is my dad he didn't graduate from high school. My mom did. My mom was actually very good at math. So for her teaching me throughout high school, helping me with my homework, that was easy. And then my dad, he was a very hard worker. So he was there to make sure to push us. And he always encouraged us to really do our best. So it just wasn't acceptable not to make the honor roll. It wasn't acceptable not to do well. And we were taught to be competitive because that's all they know. On the family island, when you're working, you have to be your best.
Now on the front line in the fight against the deadly coronavirus, things got a bit scary for both of them after being potentially exposed and ultimately spending 2 weeks in home isolation. But with good leadership, the pair say they felt secure the entire time.
It's been pretty good. You're learning a lot. Every day when you put on those PPEs, let me tell you, it's not easy. Because when you start getting nervous and you start breathing, you actually fog up the mask, the face shield, and makes it difficult for you to see. So you actually have to take a breath and say, you know what?
Stay calm.
Stay calm, Justine, because trust me, you ain't gonna be able to see that vein when you go in there to put that IV on that patient.
And in February, March, when someone would come with a cough, I'm like, well, can we get a mask for them, please? Can I get a mask? So not knowing, it is really scary, and worse, thinking of taking it home. So to kids, not seeing certain family members because of it. My sister just had a newborn baby, and I've seen him across the fence, like, hey.
You haven't really met?
No, I haven't held him. And to me, that's the tough part.
The cousins have become a source of hope and pride for their hometown. Just a few years apart in age, working in the same field, in the same hospital gets interesting.
Even to this day, they're like, Dr. Knowles, and they'll say something, I'm like, you sure you got the right nose? And so now, I guess the hair color difference in the eye.
Yeah. The cousin was just on the ward. Oh, your cousin just been to the store. Your cousin was
yes.
this place.
Oh, yes.
Oh, your cousin was this place. I'd be like, yes, I know. Oh, your cousin have a new haircut. I know.
Yeah.
But there's a certain joy that these 2 doctors get from being able to come into work every day and help save lives.
I am proud to be on the front line. I don't post on my social media that much, but I'm very proud to be in this fight against coronavirus. And I look forward to telling my children and grandchildren and all those future generations about this virus that we faced and we fought.
And a simple thank you, doctor, or God bless, or, I'm happy that I got you today. Something as simple as that. Making that difference, it overwhelms you in a positive way, and it reminds you as to why you became that doctor.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
As Bahamian suggests to changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, one local doctor is predicting an uptick in flu cases. Berthany McDermott reports.
Otorhinolaryngologist Dr. Charles Johnson is warning of an increase in the common cold and flu once measures implemented to prevent the spread of COVID-19 are relaxed. He asserted that the frequent use of face masks and hand sanitizer can result in a weaker immune system.
The use of sanitizers, all right, preventing you from getting any of those bacteria or viruses into your body. It doesn't require your body to fight it. Now, any fighter, if he's practicing, he's a better fighter. If you do karate and you don't practice, every time you go to fight, you'll be beaten.
As a result, Johnson advised Bahamians to eat healthy and exercise regularly. Meantime, Director of the Infectious Diseases Program in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Nikia Forbes, noted the Bahamas may see an uptick in flu cases due to its proximity to the United States.
Now, because of our proximity to the United States, we may see more flu cases when the United States has more flu. But that what will interrupt that usual trend is, one, at this time, there's been a shutdown in global travel. It depends on what the situation will be like in September or the fall season.
Stressing that COVID-19 is here to stay, Forbes advised residents to get their flu vaccine.
I advise everybody to get the flu vaccine. There are some guideline recommendations for who needs that. Everyone above the age of 6 months should get a flu vaccine. And there are various types of flu vaccine for people who have egg allergies, which make the usual flu vaccine not something they can usually take. So I strongly encourage people to take the opportunity to get the flu vaccine.
Face masks and hand sanitizers have become basic essentials amid the COVID-19 pandemic. However, Johnson is advising residents to be cautious of the type of hand sanitizers they use. The ear, nose, and throat specialist said the biggest concern is ingredients like triclosan and phthalates.
The phthalate, that's a chemical that helps for the scent that's in the sanitizer to hang around for a longer period of time. Those two interfere with hormone and are carcinogenic. It may affect your liver and other organs of the body.
Johnson suggests reading the ingredients in hand sanitizers before purchasing it and to lean more towards frequent hand washing. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Well, still ahead tonight, the opposition critical of government's repatriation process. That story and more coming up. Next tonight, the opposition is criticizing the government's process for bringing stranded Bahamians and residents back home. Progressive Liberal Party Chairman Senator Fred Mitchell said the process for Bahamians re-entering the country is too costly and tedious for those persons. Our Julian Gray reports.
PLP Chairman Fred Mitchell said the government seems to be making decisions without thinking of how it affects people.
The insensitivity to it all. I mean, they're just blind, deaf, and dumb to it all. It's just astounding in a country that's so small. And you say to yourself, these are people who have to live in this society after they lose the government. How are they going to look us in the face?
On Thursday, 68 passengers arrived on New Providence on a Bahamas Air flight arranged by the government. Those individuals had to have a negative COVID-19 test before being allowed to board. The PLP chairman said he had several complaints from parents who said the cost of getting their children home was too much. Mitchell said he thought the government would bring Bahamians home at no cost.
The other parent told me that once you get to Florida now, because you have to get there in advance, the test has to be a certain number of days before, because it can't be too far ahead. And the test takes 2 days to get the result. So that means you have to have a room to stay in Florida in addition to the travel cost. And the test itself costs $200. So it's just cost upon cost upon cost. And that goes back to the question about the double standard.
Mitchell suggested allowing commercial airlines to bring people home.
Since American, the nationality, not the air carrier. They're allowing flights into the Bahamas to pick up Americans and take them back home. No passengers can deplane, but why not just let the regular commercial airlines just bring people home? People who have tickets, the airlines have already waived the fees for any change of time, so that wouldn't be an issue. And they just get on the plane, if they're Bahamian citizens, and just land in the Bahamas and then self-quarantine when you get here.
Hundreds of Bahamians are still abroad trying to return home. Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
Mandatory masks in public have given rise to a whole new industry, and it's caught on all over the world. Carissa Munro teaches sewing at Ellen Coakley School in Exuma. These days, she's one of the largest mask providers on the island. After watching a YouTube video, she made her own mask. In showing off her mask making skills on WhatsApp, she was approached about supplying some for a friend.
And I got a message from a friend to say, hey, I need 3 for my workers. And from there, he was like, hey, come on, man, you need to make some money from this. And this was actually before the Prime Minister ordered that everyone wear masks. So I kind of got a jump start on it. And the thing about it is, when I started advertising on WhatsApp, the orders kept coming in so fast that I was running out of material.
As the orders started rolling in, she started asking family and friends, even in Nassau, to send whatever material they could get their hands on.
I found myself at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm still up making masks. And to this date, I've made about 450 masks so far, by myself. And so it's just been phenomenal. I appreciate the business that the Exumians have given me.
Aside from the obvious creative beauty, the masks also have a unique feature.
I like to include Bahamian culture in everything that I do. So I thought, why not add captions that, relate to the Bahamian society and also tie-ins to this pandemic that we're experiencing. So I'm like, back up, sis, you're too close, or back up, by ease up by 6 feet, hold on, wait, things like that we commonly say, just to add a little humor and to lighten the mood around what we're going through right now.
When our news, the weekend edition, comes back from the break, the Chinese Association making a donation to those in need. And later, we take a look at the most memorable quotes of the week. So stay tuned. Welcome back to our news, the weekend edition. The Chinese Community Association of the Bahamas donated 200 bags of groceries to Calvary Deliverance Church recently. Steering committee member Susie Chan says they felt there was a need in the community.
We dropped off from the Chinese Association of 200 bags of goods that consist of rice, grits, corned beef, tuna, mackerel, and fresh milk. So we felt that there's a need in the community to get some food assistance, and that's why our community came together, and we plan to do this every week, given that the donations are there and the funds are available. We'll try our best to help the community.
Calvary Deliverance Church Senior Pastor Bishop James Newry said this donation will go a long way in assisting families in need in that community. He said the grocery bags will be distributed on Tuesday at 11 a.m.
The first 200 on this coming Tuesday morning. We start at 11, and after it's gone. But we hope that we would be able to receive.
You have our commitment that we will also do this again in the future. We're trying to get this done every week, and we hope that other people in the Chinese community come out and support us.
Bahamas Red Cross facilitated the donation, and according to Director General Sean Brennan, there are a number of other initiatives like this planned for other communities throughout New Providence.
We have a schedule where we will be visiting all food feeding programs scattered throughout the southwest portion of the island. The island of New Providence has been divided into 5 different zones. The Bahamas Red Cross, we're the zone leader for the southeastern portion of the island. There are other zone leaders who would be doing likewise throughout the entire island and by extension throughout the entire Bahamas.
Meanwhile, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated donated $500 to Hands for Hunger recently. The sorority's vice president said as the demand for assistance increases, they wanted to help the nonprofit in providing for those who need it most.
Hands for Hunger has done many things worldwide and in the Bahamas, and we know that now during this time they are in need for assistance. So this is why our organization has decided to contribute to the efforts that they are doing with assisting those who are in need, especially those who are hungry and cannot afford to feed themselves on a daily basis.
Hands for Hunger, which assists hundreds of people each week, thanked the sorority for its donation.
Our efforts have shifted because of COVID-19. The basis of Hands for Hunger is food rescue, And so, of course, all of our food rescue donors have either suspended their operations or completely stopped. And so it forced us to shift our operations into more purchasing to support our food box initiatives and also our food voucher program. So donations like this one today, will do a lot to help support and sustain our initiatives.
Find out the most memorable quotes of the week. That's coming up when our news, the Weekend Edition, returns. Finally tonight, it's that time when we take a look back at the most memorable moments of the weekend news. In at number 3 are the views of these residents on who they want to be the next governing party.
I am not voting for no F&M government next 2 years.
Who would you vote for? Would you vote for PLC government? You think
For
they would
God.
be any better? You voting for God?
I vote for God, because only Him can clear this mess we are in now.
Fish man don't call it fish stink. But they've all had their chance, and they've all done some good things, and they've all done some bad things. So I would say to you, in my mind, it's a 50-50.
In at number 2 is opposition leader Philip Davis, who says in the face of challenges like climate change and a global pandemic, the minister-led government has a leadership deficit.
You are going to hear a lot about fiscal deficits in the coming weeks. But what I see is a leadership deficit. A strong leader would tell you the same old isn't going to work for us. Instead, we have the Prime Minister telling people yet again they are going to have to sacrifice.
But taking the top spot for quote of the week are the loved ones of those 55 Hurricane Dorian victims who were buried on Friday.
18 trip I make in Nassau. 18 trip between Abaco and Nassau to try to find my wife's body and to bury that. But they don't want to give it to me.
You haven't been able to locate her at all?
No, sir. So they spin me like a yo-yo, look like I'm stupid.
Well, I think it's a car. Because I don't think there's any bodies in those things up there. At least not the bodies what tagged on it.
This is not right. This is not normal. This is not traditional. This is disrespectful. We are angry.
Well, that does it for our quote of the week and other stories making news this evening. Our weather forecast is up next. And that's our news, the weekend edition for this Sunday. I'm Andrew Knowles. For all of us here at our News, thanks so much for watching. Let's remember to be safe and look out for each other. Have a good night.